And so Golveg being the manifestation of the lust for gold, it's interesting because gold also represents higher consciousness, the expansion of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Turning lead into gold, getting into alchemy.
Yeah.
And the circle of the magician, and I encourage everyone to actually fucking do it. When you stand there within the circle and set forth your intention, you are literally in connection with the Norns.
Yeah.
But are you in alignment? If you're not, you're going to be manifesting some fucked up bullshit in your fucking existence, along with that having an effect on everybody else, having an effect on the aggregate, and we are pitifully unaware of what we are actually doing here. Because it's like what you said about how people have this perception that life is happening to us. That's that victim mentality. That's that bullshit. That's that fucking excuse that keeps people from actually coming into alignment and becoming the masters of themselves, taking the true initiation onto the true magical path.
Right.
The true magical path. Because without that inner guidance, and see, this is a major fucking problem with people that want to get into the magic and the occult, all this kind of shit. They're not making connection to their true core essence first.
Right.
And cleansing and purging and going through that healing process before they actually start doing some real fucking magic.
And that all starts with the base assumption. If the base assumption is that you are unsafe, that you are unloved, that you are not immortal, if you start with that, then you say to yourself, I need to do black magic because I need power, because without that I won't be able to control that. But if you start with a completely different assumption, which is very frightening, because you will be vulnerable to the immensity of the infinite universe. If you start with the assumption that you are everything, that means then you can accept that what you intend is going to be everything you've ever wanted. But that is the scariest thing in the world, and that is, again, something to weep for. When somebody has the choice within them, because, again, in order for this to work, we have to feel as though we don't know where we are. People ask me all the time, well, why do we reincarnate? We don't remember. Because if you remembered, you wouldn't be honest. If you are in the place of not remembering, and you can choose to operate from your joy, which will scare the shit out of you, because you will feel vulnerable and weak, or you can operate from some false idea of being protected. And then it's like the magic is lost, and then, yes, everybody weeps. It's about being in that place of fearlessness. That place of fearlessness is also the place of complete vulnerability to the infinite universe. And that will kill you. That is Odin. That is the experience of Odin, dying to himself. And when he dies to himself, he then is given the runes, which give him the ability to do exactly that. The thing about the runes is the runes are like a magical decoder ring, you know?
Fuck yeah, they are. We just had a very, very powerful session. You actually did a rune reading for me, and it was fucking bang the fuck on. Let me tell you, everybody out there listening, the runes are not to be trifled with.
Yeah.
They're to be respected. This is the fire letter codex of the planetary fucking Templar itself. Yeah. The planetary Templar, this is akin to the 9 worlds and the 8 gates. And it's interesting because other people in my inner circle that are on other, higher occult science material are actually confirming this in context to the Nordic tradition, man. It is flawlessly in alignment with everything. And it is so unbelievably powerful what I sense and feel going on, the awakening of the ancestors and everything that's coming back into alignment, coming out of the Kali Yuga. And now we're approaching the time where even the gods and goddesses themselves are going to evolve along with us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and to be in that position of that emptiness, the runes are one example. I'm trying to put into words, but it's like when you're in the middle of that emptiness and everything is around you, you have the ability to then, turn the universe in a different way. You know, I don't mess with the runes because if I start teaching a rune, that rune happens in my life. And it's not like I have any control over it. To imagine Odin having the power to have the mastery of the runes to that degree, that means that he literally has nothing to defend. That's important. He has nothing to defend. He has nothing to protect. If you have something to defend, if you have something to protect, you can be destroyed. And if you play around with the runes out of a desire to gain power because you feel weak and you need something to gain power, and though if the runes, you know, the universe is fairly kind, because for most people, the runes do not respond like that. They know when to back off until you know differently. Then once you know differently, you're completely responsible for what happens, which is why I don't mess with them. Because they don't see me that way. And when I do them, then, you know, that rune comes into my life and I get torn to shreds. And it doesn't matter if it's a good rune or a bad rune. It doesn't matter if it's Fehu or if it's Yukwaj. I get torn to shreds. So this is Odin, to be in that position of there's nothing left to be torn away. There's nothing left to be destroyed. You are pure power, which means at the same time you are 100% surrendered to the universe. And that's the fine line to gain power. And I'm telling you from experience, you know, there was a point in time when I had experience and I could do shit you might not believe. It was because I was simultaneously surrendered to infinity, and when you surrender to it, it obeys you. But that's the only time. You can't have it if you're not surrendered. I'm hammering away at this because the idea of black magic is I'm taking some knowledge so that I can change the world to fit whatever it is you think you don't deserve. Because if you don't think you deserve it, that's when you go after black magic. If you believe you deserve something, then it's not black magic. And you don't have anything to hide. You don't have anything to prove. There's no intensity behind trying to manifest it. It's just natural. I deserve that. But if you don't think you deserve it, then you have to go do some dark act and gain control over this and make this happen. And now
Right. And it does go back to the intention of the individual and all of the unconscious mental projection that they're not even aware of why they do what they do. This is why the arts of gnosis are so fucking important, actually getting into the mechanics of how we operate, why we think the way we think, why we see things the way we see things, why we feel things the way we feel things, getting into astro-psychology. Now, you're more versed in the Vedic tradition, which is something I apply to my life as well, and it completely resonates, but also the Western. I'm more versed in the Western and use the Western. And see, the interesting thing between the two, the axis of the Earth, 23.5 degrees, is the difference between Vedic and Western astro-psychology. And see, and this is why I want to know it all. I just can't stick with one. Yeah. Because I see the wisdom of remembering what I have to work with so that I can navigate this fucking reality field correctly without putting a self-imposed limitation, I'll say, on myself.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just me. That's just how I operate because of my disposition. Other people, it's fine either way as far as I'm concerned.
You bring up a good point, and it's maybe you can confirm this, but I've had this feeling that what Western astrology focuses on, because as I understand it, the tropical zodiac is the Earth relative to the sun, as opposed to the sidereal, which is the Earth relative to the sky above it. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense, because then this is an astrology of the soul, Western astrology.
Right, and the soul spark. Right.
The soul and the evolution of the soul. So looking at a Western astrological chart is going to help you on that level, whereas Vedic is more concerned with what's happening in the physical, which is the ascendant. They use the ascendant rather than the sun signs, because the ascendant is your physical body and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Now, one thing about astro-psychology that I absolutely agree with is that moon is the most important, because this is how our thought and emotion is operating. And if we're not the master of our thoughts and emotions, then what the fuck? Life is happening to you and you feel like that fucking victim. Yeah. Instead of being in that position within the circle of the magician, to command the universe. The universe is waiting for us to command it. This is what the universe revealed to me.
Yeah.
It's not like we are in the thralls of fucking chaos and this fucking dark magic. We are, if we're not in alignment, though.
Right.
If we're not in alignment with the spindle, in connection to the Norns, and I want to get a little bit deeper into this, the Norns and the power of their spindle, the literal fucking mathematics of the universe. This cannot be disputed or refuted. The 9 is the spindle. In context to the magic of Wyrd, in context to the 396, the triangulation, which is the cause point for polarity within ourselves, is the manifestation of the war between the Aesir and the Vanir within ourselves when we are not in alignment within the circle. Because unless 0 and 9 are in alignment, you're fucking on these infinite timelines and feedback loops that are keeping you in absolute and total fucking ignorance of who you are and what you're actually capable of here in Midgard, and is why we actually came here, man.
Yeah.
So touch upon that.
Again, assumptions, my big thing. If you have a false assumption, every belief that and conclusion that you reach on top of that assumption is also going to be incorrect. If you start with a correct assumption, then your conclusions will be built on sturdy ground. So
Occam's razor, man.
Yes. Yeah.
Occam's fucking razor.
It won't matter how deep or how brilliant somebody is if their first base assumption about themselves and their relationship to the universe is off. And what you said is, I mean, I love it, because the universe does not know that you don't know who you are. It thinks you know. So if you operate from the assumption that you're a victim and that everything is out to get you, the universe goes, oh, we're playing that game. Okay. And it just gives that to you. If you operate from the assumption that I deserve everything, and if I listen to myself and trust myself, which most people don't trust themselves, then I will know exactly where I want to go. And the universe goes, yeah, let's give you that. Somebody responded to one of my videos. I don't remember which one it was, but somebody said something along the lines of that I was like one of the Kardashians, and, you know, who are all these people that are out there trying to make all this money, and the rest of us sit by and watch. And I responded back and said, if you can understand that phrase of you sitting by and watching, and you can figure out what the problem is with that, you'll be able to fix whatever it is you think is wrong.
Yeah, you got to get onto the goddamn fucking playing field and start to carve out your goddamn fucking destiny.
And this is again, we're talking about
that's not going to happen to anybody.
No, it's not going to. Nobody's going to show up at the door and knock at the door. That's why the whole Jesus mythology. Jesus shows up and he says, "Hey, I'll take it on for you. Here, I'm knocking at the door. Let me in." That's just, it doesn't work like that. You're already there. And if somebody, you know, again, if you start with the base assumption, I am God, and not only am I God, but what I want, which not I think I want, but what naturally comes out of me and says, I love this, this feels good, that is the will of the universe. You want to talk about God's will. God's will is your happiness, your joy, not your distraction. There's a difference. Distraction is not joy. You die to yourself, then you feel that, and the universe just gives it to you. It says, here's this, here's that. But again, if you operate from the assumption that you're not, you're limited, you have to be careful, you don't trust yourself, whatever your narcissism is, then the universe goes, we can do that one too.
Right.
It doesn't make any decision one way or another. It says, you're God, you must know what you're doing. So yeah, we'll create the war, and there's the destruction, and there's the, you must, clearly you want to figure something out by being that miserable and suicidal. So, okay, we'll create that for you.
Right.
And you can change it.
So with that, can you touch a little bit more upon Wyrd?
Wyrd, that which has been woven. That's what the word Wyrd means according to my understanding. Wyrd is the...
It's fucking weird, man.
It is fucking weird. That's why we still have that word, you know?
Right. I love that. I love that, man.
We've gotten rid of so many of our powerful words, but we haven't gotten rid of that one. We can't. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody says it. How many times a day do we say the word weird?
Oh, plenty.
We clearly have an unconscious understanding. When people used to say that, back when, if something happened, you'd go, weird.
I was the weird one.
Right.
Now I know why.
Yeah.
Now I know absolutely why I was the weird, because I'm just in context of everything we're talking about.
Because you carry that spindle within you, like you talk about.
Right.
And you carry that with you, and what happens is when you come into contact with other people's weird, it fucks it up. And they can't keep their bullshit, victim mentality going. It won't work. So they either have to learn to align to you, which is why you're a teacher, or they have to project that you're whatever it is they are and make you the enemy. This is what teachers are. And I never understood this. I went through this as a kid too. As a kid, I was constantly being picked on. Guys twice my size would walk up to me and say, "I don't like you." I'm like, "What did I do? I didn't do anything."
Yeah, I got my fucking ass kicked when I was a kid. I got in so many fights, and I was fighting growing up. It's true what you're saying. That unconscious projection upon the vibrational correspondence, it's here in the reality field. It's in alignment and doesn't even know it's in alignment yet because I forgot who the fuck it is. At the same time, though, I did have this inner knowing that I didn't understand. Now I'm coming into the feeling. It's not a thought form. It's not necessarily even an emotional charge. It just is. It just is there, and it's always been there. So the magic of weird in context of the 9, how do we actually come into alignment with that and wield it correctly? I think the way that you wield it is completely unique, given over to the astro-psychological disposition, how we're navigating what I call the solar spiral. And then you got everything happening on the galactic level, the galactic spiral. This is getting into stargates of consciousness and other star systems and all this stuff that people talk about in context to Orion and the Pleiades and Arcturus and all this other stuff. That also is a part of everything, including what we're talking about. So it's not just one thing here. Everything that everybody talks about, as far as I'm concerned, is fucking happening. It's just a question, okay, what are you connected to and how are you navigating?
It's not an either or, it's multiples. It's like as a kid, I remember my mom had one of those crystal chandeliers, and she would clean it. She would take the little, the crystal off. And I would look through one of the facets. And if you look at one of the facets, you see all the other facets. All the other pictures are coming through, but you're only looking through one facet. Through that one facet, you can see everything else. You turn it around, look through another facet, same thing. So each path, whatever it is that people are practicing, is one facet. So everything goes back to that center. To get back to weird, to understand how weird works, this is how I look at it. The way I look at it is, again, the now, the ever unfolding now. In the ever unfolding now, every single nanosecond, you are having a thought, a reaction, an intention all the time. Each one of those things creates a past. That past then creates your debt. So the Vedics call it karma, but our ancestors, which means the same thing. We create a debt that you have to fulfill. You have to live it out. The way to master that is to master the now, this now. The way for me to do that is I start with the assumption that my soul is composed of joy. If I want to completely experience my soul, then I want to be in complete joy. Now, that's not humanly possible all the time. So what I have to do is constantly check myself to say, what is it that gives me joy? Whether that's I want to do this in the future or I want to go surfing, that's my soul aligning me, continuously aligning me. And then I have to take action towards that. If I take action towards that, I'm constantly in the ever unfolding now, in connection, in alignment with my soul, which means that I create a past which creates the future that I want. Not the future that I think I want. Because people walk around, this is why The Secret doesn't work. The secret says what you focus on is what you create, and that's only partially true. The assumption behind that is that the universe is arbitrary. What we mean by that is that the assumption is that you are arbitrary and you're not. You have a specific soul desire that wants to create a universe. And that is immovable. Everything else is movable. That is not. So our job is to align ourselves with that. Now, because we don't remember, we don't have the cheat sheet in front of us, we only have one thing, which is, what is it that gives me happiness? Now, you know you're finding your happiness when you start to say, that is stupid, that's silly, people are going to, target me, and that's how you know.
It's like the North Node.
Yeah.
This is where the soul desire resides, but also your greatest fears.
Yeah. And that's the whole game. You came down here to face those fears and overcome them. When you choose to black magic, I need this power so I can control this, because if I don't, that's coming from the wrong assumption, the assumption of fear. You come from the assumption of joy, it's going to be, I don't care what people think. I don't care if I die doing it. If I die doing what makes me the happiest, then great. That's totally different.
Right.
And interestingly enough, when you're willing to die for what it is that gives you the greatest joy, you don't die. You overcome. Everything falls in front of you. This is why our ancestors said that people who went to Valhalla died in battle. Those who went to the underworld died of illness or old age. What that means is, and I've come to find out that there's truth to this, that when you are not in alignment with what gives you joy, which is your immensity, your infinity, the reality it wants to create, when you are not in alignment with that, then you are in rageful conflict with yourself, which creates either external chaos or misery or disease.
Yeah. And that's the war of the Aesir and the Manu.
Brilliantly, the way you set that up brilliantly, because that's exactly it, the war between the Aesir and the Manu. Mm-hmm. And so that's what our ancestors meant. Whether they knew it or not, they were saying, if you want to live without disease, then you have to be without conflict in your soul desire. And to be willing to die doing that. If you are in conflict, which means you go out of alignment with what you want, you're going to create that conflict, that war, which will either create some kind of a chaos or death or disease or old age, which is what? Somebody could be 80 years old and be in really great shape, or somebody can be 80 years old and walking around. So it's not that, what it looks like on the surface. You get what I'm saying.
It's all about your state of mind.
Yeah.
Everything in the universe is a mental projection. And I am absolutely 100% convinced that the cosmic laws are part of the sacred code. Part of the sacred code of all sentient beings that have ever fucking existed. And if you're not in alignment with that, it's like Anubis. You're not going to pass beyond the gates. He's weighing the hearts of mankind with the feather of Ma'at, which represents cosmic law. And if your thought and emotion is not in alignment with that soul spark, with that soul desire, you're fucked. You're completely fucked, and you're going to come back again, and you're going to get that mind wipe coming back in, and you're not going to remember, and you're going to get layered the fuck over with the distortions and all this kind of stuff that just devours life. Yeah. Okay? So, in context to the magic of Wyrd, this is everything to do with the spindle, like we're touching upon. The energy force itself, the positive and negative charge. Now, go a little bit deeper in context to the norms and share with me a little bit more of what the well of Wyrd actually is.
Wow. I got to be honest with you. That's something I'm still trying to get a handle on, which may be part of the problem. Because we're talking about, again, coming into manifestation and forgetting. But the well of Wyrd is true memory. It's not a memory of, here's a list of things that happened. It's the memory of essence. So let's talk about in Indo-European languages, which includes English and Vedic and Spanish and Greek and Latin. At some point, if you go far enough back in time, there will be two words for truth. One is truth, which means essence. It doesn't mean the factual truth of this happened on this day. Okay, I went down Main Street and I turned left. That's the truth. That's not the truth. That's a bunch of facts. The truth used to mean, came from the same root to be, which meant that your being, your essence, was truth. And we've lost that word in English, and in most Indo-European languages, we've lost that word. We used to have it, the last incarnation of that word, you know, Shakespearean language, they'd say forsooth, which meant for truth. One of the ways to worship the divine in the Sikh tradition is to chant the word Sat, which is the same word, essence of being. And one of the words is Satnam, which is the name of truth, meaning I am essence. And then we have troth, which is your commitment. So that's something altogether different. And we are associating that with truth. But to get back to your question about the well of Wyrd, I think that the well of Wyrd is the true essence of being, which in that context represents true memory, which is not a memory of facts or a memory of dates or chronological happenings, which is what people want to remember. I want to remember my past life. That gives you nothing. What does give you the ability to, again, create new timelines is to remember your essence, which is, as you're talking about, you said it's more than a feeling, it's more than a knowledge, it's more than a fact. It's something you can't put into words, but when you're there and you experience it, you know what it is. I think that's what the well of Wyrd is. And that's why, you know, the gods go back to it. That's why the Norns sit there. They sit there, and maybe that's why they weep. Because if we were coming from that well, they wouldn't have to weave anything. We go out of alignment, that's something they have to weave into existence, and they mourn over that. That's beautiful.
So the well of Wyrd is the wellspring of the weeping of the Norns, trying to remind us, trying to get us to remember our true essence, which is eternal.
Yeah.
There's infinity, but then there's also eternity.
Yeah.
And eternity is ever present. It is right now.
Right.
From moment to moment to moment to moment. See, everything out there, again, is a reflection of what is within.
Right. It's all
and humanity is not going to fucking evolve, as far as I'm concerned, until we remember that the heavens above are within us. All is within. We are connected to the all. We are connected to that well. That well is there within us, right? Yeah. But what the fuck are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? And you can see how people squander their essence. They squander their destiny. They give their power away. Everybody's got this list of fucking excuses of why they can't do what they really want to fucking do and what they feel. And then you're given over to the constructs of domination and control, which I think is an unconscious mental projection of the Jotun, dark magic, of that dark sorcery that is giving power to those that are in lust for that gold egg archetype, man. And it's not the real gold. It's fool's gold, man. Yeah. It's fucking fool's gold. And we're all being tricked, thinking that, you know, if I just get this or if I just accumulate more and it's just take, that we're somehow going to be fulfilled. And it just all falls through the fucking floor every fucking time. And that's Jornmonger. That's the Ouroboros. And it's the devourment and taking of life instead of the expansion of consciousness and tapping into the creative abilities that we have.
And when you can get to the place where your only possession is your state of essence, that is the ultimate goal. Your only possession. You know, you were talking about people taking and taking. And name one hoarder that's happy. I can't think of one.
Have you ever seen that fucking show, Hoarders?
I have. You can barely walk through the house because everything is piled to the ceiling, and that's just exactly what you're talking about, which is the same idea.
Right.
And that's why, and I haven't achieved it yet to my knowledge, but to get to that place where my only possession is my essence, that wellspring of my being, which is again what Odin is. That's Odin.
Right. Loki was talking about the blood of the Norns and how the blood of the Norns is being siphoned as well. It's not just the tears, it's not just the weeping. Their essence is literally being siphoned as well. And this is how the well of Wyrd becomes poisoned.
Yeah.
This is how our true magic, the well of Wyrd being siphoned. The magic of Wyrd is, as far as I'm concerned, very, very real. The tradition of our ancestors, going back as far back as it does, man. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievably powerful for me. And what it is showing me in context to all of the other things I've been in study with. Okay, what's the viable proper knowledge? What do we actually need to be focused on that's going to give us the outcome and the result that we're actually intending from our soul? From our soul, not all up in your head with the fucking programs and the mind control and all this other fucked up shit. And you can see it happening, man. All you got to do is look out.
Yeah.
All you got to do is look out. Once you know it, all you got to do is look out, and you can see what the fuck I'm talking about. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Now, one thing I want to get into next is the Voluspa. And the Voluspa, as you know, is the prophecy of the seeress.
Yes.
And I want to get into a little bit of what Odin's connection was with the seeress, why he came to her to get insights from her specifically here in Midgard.
This brings up the understanding between Seed and Gall, which is shamanism, wizardry. And she is the one who says what she saw. She says she saw this and she saw that and she saw the different worlds, and she tells you how many worlds there have been and all that stuff. And so in order for Odin to interpret what needs to happen, what ritual to perform, which is, again, we're talking about true magic, creating, he has to hear from the seeress what she's seeing. And Odin can't know what his magic is until he hears from her what she sees. But her vision can't create magic by itself. She doesn't know what to do with that. She needs to give it to him so that he can hear that and interpret it and then knows what to do. So he's sitting at her saying, tell me what you see. Just shared about this on the channel. I've shared about it a couple times, but the history of the world would be completely different if one thing had changed, which we have written down according to history. When the Romans were conquering Europe and they were bringing in this dualist monotheism, bringing with them all this stuff you're talking about, of control and manipulation and all that with the empirical mindset. They came to the borders of the Germanic tribes, and the Germanic tribes had all come together and made this huge army against them. And they're across from each other, this field. And the staff carrier woman said, do not attack yet. If you attack, you will lose, and there's this hint of, unimagined destruction will come from it. He didn't listen to her. The Germans attacked first, and the rest is history. We now have the world that we have. If we didn't, we would be a completely different society. So this means that the wizard has to have the vision that the shamans bring. It gives itself over to the universe and it sees or it channels, but it doesn't understand all the time. And so without the understanding, we don't know what to do with it. I have students that come to me all the time. I had this vision, I had this dream, and to me it's really clear. And I say, oh, that means this means that, that means that. And they know exactly what to do. they're giving me all kinds of information from the other side. I get that from you too. You
Right.
share your visions, and I'm like, oh, and I get to put it all together, and then that gives me something that I can use to then teach more, to help people find the way, to know which way to go. So it's sort of like the wizard creates the map, but he can't do that until somebody is coming back with, okay, you know, here's the picture from this side of the valley and that side of the valley, and then he puts it together and creates a map. That's what Odin is doing there. Odin, as the ultimate expression of the masculine, can do nothing without the power of the feminine. The power of the feminine cannot create without the ability of the masculine to put it into a direction. So that's one of the things I see from it.
I think when, after the first war took place, they did end up making peace. Odin taught Freya the runes, and Freya taught Odin Scythe.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when that balance and harmony comes together. Yeah. That's when the true magic can come into alignment, and it's not, you know, pulled into the realms of fucking chaos like it was with fucking Hyrule.
Yeah.
Like it still is.
Let's go back to Hyrule. Ragnarok is going to bring a really fucking kick-ass next level. Without it, there won't be that next level. The gods have to die, but they transform into new realms. But at the same time, you know, the evil gets recreated again. You can't get rid of that. That unconscious, you know, there's more destruction. It has to destroy to be recreated all the time.
Yeah, it's a part of everything. And these are the cycles of Ragnarok, akin to alchemy, going through the transmutation and the alchemical process, going through that calcination and putrefaction stage. When you go into Nigredo, the Shadow Realm, all that kind of stuff, that is when Ragnarok starts within the individual. So
what you're bringing to this discussion, which I want to acknowledge, is that this is not that it's a risk. Life is a risk. And that coming into human form is a risk, because there is a very real risk that we will fuck it up. Because it's true that, you know, we have a responsibility. This is why it's so important to stay in the now and focus on doing the fearless act of following the wellspring of your soul, because that is what the rest of the universe, including the Norns, including the Jotuns, including the gods and Vanir, are focusing on, hoping that we will help create that faster path to evolution, which is, again, like, you know, I gave the example of, had that Germanic warrior listened to his seeress, he would have changed the whole future. The Hopi have a different, same kind of understanding, which is that, you know, the four races split off and learned the four different elements, and their job was at the end, which is now we come together and we share our knowledge, and then we evolve to the next level. And they said, when the white man shows up, if he comes with a cross without a circle, he's forgotten who he is, and it's going to create all kinds of horrific chaos.
So real quick, on a side note, the natives knew this.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they knew.
And see this right here, the knowledge of what you're tapping into all goes back to the wisdom council. The wisdom councils that did exist here.
Yeah.
It was every race and tribe, a round table, man. This is like fucking Arthur's fucking round table. I mean, the real round table, the planetary Templar, the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail, this is Arthur's Excalibur. This is the Mjolnir. This is the Egyptian Ankh. This is the key to the fucking universe, okay? And the key to creation and how to wield it correctly. Everyone has a unique way of working with it, right? And it is to respect all tribes, all races, all ways of navigating what we are here to navigate and unfold what we are all here to unfold. Now, right now, what I see happening is the catching up the soul cycles, where the ancestors are being healed. We're coming into alignment, being reminded more and more and more. And there's those of us here, the wisdom councils, that in context to that is literally starting to be created again, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I can't speak for anybody else, but I absolutely know for a fact that I am a part of this. this is something that I have to talk about, and then it's out there. I don't get to decide for anybody else. Ragnarok and then the Ragnaroker. We're at a very, very important pinnacle point in the timeline and history that's going to unfold for the future for mankind.
Yeah.
It's not about us wanting to be in the position of domination or anything, because take it back to the ancient shamans. Take it back to even the druids, what me and Thomas Sheridan touched upon in the most recent segments.
That was a great segment, by the way.
Awesome. You got a chance to check it out?
Yeah.
Awesome. And he talked about how the Viki and Volva and the druids were in the position as the stewards, the ones that knew how things actually fucking worked. And see, this is what all of the dark ones want to fucking hoard. They're like those fucking hoarders, man. They just want to keep it. And see, they're completely, absolutely fucked now, because it's been over 28,000 fucking years of accumulation and hoarding, and they are completely fucking fucked right now. And I'm going to address it. I'm going to say it in this segment. You motherfuckers are fucked. And they're being given a chance, okay? But a lot of the changes that could have happened in the past, we're going to get that opportunity again. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to touch upon the prophecy of the seeress and Odin's connection to her, and the coming together of masculine and feminine in the way that it was truly intended to fucking be. Yeah. And see, I started to talk about this, Michael, over 2.5 fucking years ago now. This was the very first fucking thing that I started talking about. Very first fucking thing. And it kicked out that fucking Ragnarok all across the board, in network with people, and all this stuff just, coming to the fucking surface. This is literally what's happened the last 2.5 fucking years after I came back, being gone for over 2 years, going through more initiations and coming into alignment more with that essence. And then, okay, now it's fucking time. And I didn't see it coming. But for 2.5 years, listen, for 2.5 years, I was silent. I was silent, and I set forth my intention within the circle for 2.5 fucking years. Not just one day. I'm going to do a ritual one day and then something's going to fucking happen. No. It takes focus. It takes being, in alignment and connection to truth. Trusting yourself, like you're talking about, man. Trusting yourself. And knowing that thing that is there, there within you, that true essence is bringing you into alignment. Now, I can only speak for myself, but the power of the seeress, the power of her visions, is something that I think a lot of women, and I want you to take this and go with it, man. A lot of women are in fear of that. Oh, yeah. They're in fear of their position and what their actual point is with all of this, man. Because the feminine has been the main target. Yep. Why has it been the main target? Because they are the essence of the primordial womb of the all. This is of Niflheim. This is Niflheim, right? Fire, water, where that all life comes from Niflheim, right? Yeah. Yep. From the great north. And touch upon that in context to the seeress and the position of women that are starting to awaken and start to come into alignment with what's unfolding.
Yeah, let's do that. And I also want to underscore what you were saying about, discipline. You were showing up every day for an extended period of time with the same intention. The Norns, which is about shifting that spindle to recreate timelines and align that timeline. That is done through discipline. That's not something that happens instantly unless you have completely aligned yourself, and most of us haven't. And so in that ever unfolding present moment, we have to have the discipline to continue to create in that moment through our intention. And that's what you're talking about. That's why, I spend so much time giving people exercises to do. I'm hammering away at it. It's great. You come onto my channel and we talk, but you've got to do the work. The work is every single day realigning yourself in the present moment until it becomes second nature. Then you can turn your eyes on something and manifest. Turn your eyes and manifest. So I wanted to underscore that before I talk about the feminine. The feminine, there's a reason why our ancestors worshipped the sun as a feminine being. There's no life without it, but it's also, incredibly powerful. You think about the light that comes here from the sun that feeds the plants, which feeds the animals, which feeds us, and all that kind of stuff. The vitamin D3, we can't function without that. It starts with an incredibly, unbelievably powerful nuclear fusion explosion at the center of that massive ball of gas. And the word sunna is emptiness, but it's not the emptiness of nothing. It's the emptiness of pure potential, which is the most powerful thing in the universe. The power of the feminine is like a nuclear bomb. That's how powerful it is. When I first started training in the spirit fighting, I started learning about the power of the feminine in ways I'd never even heard before. They'd walk in and they'd start talking about the power of the feminine, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And then they'd say, here's what it feels like. And then they'd just barely touch you, and a bomb goes off inside it. And as I was learning that, and I was learning the postures and the hand seals and those kinds of things, I felt this huge explosion of energy within me that first gave me this feeling of ultimate bliss, and then there was this fear that hit me like, holy crap. And then there was a being next to me on my left side, which is the feminine side. And this being brought pictures into my mind of a nuclear bomb going off and said, if you misuse this power, we'll take it away from you. And I saw these nuclear bombs, meaning that this is the kind of power that you're being given access to, which is nothing more than the power of the feminine. The woman who started this sect, which was the first sect of Taoism, was a woman. That same sect, then after all the other Taoist sects then sprouted up out of it, they became masculine oriented. And then they turned and started calling that sect a sect of sorcery. But whenever they had a problem, guess who they went to? They went to that bad sorcery sect. And this is, in our society, we go far enough back in time, we have the villain in fairy tales. It's women.
Right. You're touching upon some things that you mentioned in another segment that we did, talking about when the Romans came to the borders of the Germanic tribes and they didn't listen to the seers. And this is when men lost their fucking power.
Yep. And they did it out of insecurity, because they're looking across
out of fear
the field at these Romans who are now 100% masculine oriented, empirical people saying, wow, well, if they're doing it, well, I'm just as manly as you. Shut up, woman. And guess what happened? They lost. Look at it both ways, because if we look at the idea of the wicked witch of the north is the villain, our ancestors understood that the feminine had all the power. Now, here's something I wanted to say earlier. Now I've got an even better platform to say it. The Germanic tribes specifically had an ancestral responsibility. And when they shirked their responsibility, it descended the world into the chaos we have now. And that is because in my studies, I haven't found any other culture that does this. I'm open to if somebody reveals it to me. The word vulva means staff carrier, the phallic symbol, In the Germanic tribes, the women carried the staff, which means the men trusted the feminine to such a degree that they literally gave them their staff to hold on to it.
Right.
They had all of the power. Once they took their staff out of the women's hands, the world started to descend into the chaos that we have now, which means that the Germanic tribes had an ancestral responsibility to bring something to the table, which they didn't do. And again, if we go back to the Hopis said that Each of the tribes were to go off into 4 directions and learn the 4 elements, which became the 4 races, and we're going to come back together. And when the white man comes back, who's mastered fire, if he's got the circle, which is the feminine, surrounding the cross, it remembers who he is. It'll bring the world into a new space of awareness and evolution. If he comes without the circle, it means he's forgotten himself, which means he forgot the feminine. Stay the fuck away, because what he's going to bring is pestilence and disease and destruction. What I have to say to, any racialists who really want to hold on to their idea, and whenever I talk about this, you get people who get really defensive and say, I'm not a, and they think they're defending their own race, and they're not. Because if you defend your own race, you're going to defend the reality that we dropped the ball, fucked up big time. And the answer is not to dig in deeper into your denial and to justify your fucking mistake by being a racist asshole. The understanding is, if you're a man, you admit your mistakes without any fear and without any guilt. We now have this opportunity to bring this back. The masculine and the feminine have to be in unison together, or they can't create. What has happened over the past 2,000 years because of the male domination is that women have forgotten what their power is, which is not to be men. So the idea of trying to get your equality back by trying to act like a man is why would you do that? You have the power of indirect power, because what happens during the act of love? The man brings his directness. What is it that gives him that directness? When she indirectly surrounds him. She takes his staff. He becomes the staff carrier. That's what gives him the ability to be who he is, which then turns her.
Right, and it puts her back in the position as the true goddess.
She allows him to do that. She says, I will now allow you to worship me, which turns him on, and the act of that makes him the king. It's because of her power that he becomes that. What I see more often than not when it comes to women is they are so defeated and they have so much lack of understanding and self-respect that they complain about how men do this to me and men have done that to me. And that means you've been infected. You've been infected with the hypnotic suggestion that you are not the one who has the power to hold the staff. And when women can stop complaining and stop being the victim and own their power, they won't have to stand face to face to men and stare them down and talk them down, because that's not how it's done. They will be able to, through their positive intention, men will arise to who they're supposed to be. We need the feminine for the man to rise to his noble stature and confidence and all of the things that women say that they want from us. So that can start with this discussion of, if we do our part as men, we are going to say to them, I want you, the feminine, to be powerful enough to hold my staff. I will give my staff to you if you can rise to your power. And then they can do their part. They can do their part and reflect back to us in ways that we can hear. That's probably the biggest issue from my perspective.
They are the essence of the primordial womb. Now, in context to Hyreken, looking at it from another perception, she is the manifestation of the abyss, where all the dark gods hail from, and all this inverted fucking shit. And I see that how women are terrified of their destiny, of their true destiny, Why is it that they are in so much fear?
Excellent point. I'm so glad you brought that up. As I've said before, if I were to strike somebody, I would strike them with the feminine. You can put in front of me the biggest, strongest, toughest guy in the world, who if you take a bat to his head and crack a bat over his head, he keeps coming at you. The more masculine he is, if you just tap him with the feminine. I'm not kidding. I've done this. It's been done to me. You tap them with the feminine, they crumble. And they are so afraid of that. What a true man does is a true man allows the woman to face her nuclear power. Remember I said earlier that the feminine was shown to me as being like a nuclear bomb. Without the masculine, the nuclear bomb goes off and destroys everything. Women are afraid of that power, and rightly so. The spirit fighting that I teach, it's more difficult for men to comprehend the idea of the feminine, but once they catch on, emotionally and psychologically, it's still very frightening, but they can do it. Women, on the other hand, you just start barely showing them the true power of the feminine, and they run because they cannot handle how much power that is. They haven't been given the rigidity of the masculine, which gives them the support to allow them to fully embrace that nuclear power that they have, because we haven't done our job.
Exactly.
Men can look into the darkness and come out unscathed. Women can't. They look into the darkness, it consumes them.
And this is the position of the masculine. It's not the woman, it's us.
Right.
It's men that don't know who the fuck they are. See, a real man's going to know what we're fucking talking about.
Yep.
Not some fucking beta bitch fucking slave that's trying to play into the fucking illusion. That doesn't fucking work. And that's why there's so much fucking domestic fucking bullshit going on all across the fucking board.
Right.
That's why people that are married are fucking miserable. They don't know who the fuck they are.
Men don't know how to respond to the Me Too movement. They don't know how should I respond to that. A true man knows exactly how to respond to that.
Right. And this is what I think men fear the most, because they don't fucking trust themselves.
Yep.
Which puts the feminine force into fucking chaos.
Exactly. And that chaos is destructive. Always.
That chaos is fucking Hyrule.
Yes. It's the wicked witch, which means that's the feminine that the masculine has not been there for.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned the Wicked Witch of the North. See, the Wizard of Oz, it's very fucking interesting. This is the path of the fool. Getting into the tarot, I practice tarot, I study tarot. Tarot is fucking magic. It is absolutely fucking powerful. And anybody out there listening to this, get into it, because this gets into the archetypes of human consciousness and shows us the path to become the master of ourselves with both men and women. With the positive and negative charge of the energy force, the ultimate expression of that is the hermit. The hermit, he is the master wizard. He is the master sage. He's the master magician. He's pretty much the goddamn fucking master of whatever the fuck he touches. It doesn't matter. It's not just in context to esoteric sciences and magic and all this kind of stuff. He is in alignment with who he is. And it's interesting because the hermit is holding the staff, but he's alone. He's alone on top of the fucking mountain. He's looking out. He is looking out, okay, who do I give this to? And that is the mystery unfolding itself, because I've never actually fucking said this. It doesn't stop at the hermit. That's a point of navigation on the path. And it's not just masculine, it's both. It's the positive and negative charge. It's the feminine and the masculine together as one with the hermit. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that power, that nuclear fucking fusion, that spirit bomb of the divine feminine force is what the dark ones fear the most, is what Hyrule fears the most, is what the Jotun fear.
And Hyrule is that.
Right.
This is again like looking at Kali. Or Hela's a better example.
Right.
Hela has two sides. Half of her is beautiful woman and the other half is rotting corpse. Which means that if you are attached to your unconsciousness, your desire, your self-hatred, if you're attached to that, then that's what you're going to see reflected back to you as that corpse, which is what you're, what you're hoarding, what you think is going to keep you safe, is actually rotting like a corpse. If you have cleaned that out, and you have acknowledged, as you said, the wellspring, and you are in full alignment with that, then you are going to be reflected back to her, and she is going to come as this beautiful young maiden. So Hyrrockin could be that as well. The funeral ship of Balder being pushed out into the ocean that the gods can't push. She's the only one that has the power to do it.
Right.
So she represents going into the limited world, which has all of that negativity that we've ascribed to it, all of the decay and the death. But that is based upon how we are aligned. She could have been the most beautiful goddess in the world who lovingly pushes Balder into the ocean of manifestation. Depends on how we look at it, because the snake,
right,
the wolf, the smoke, you put all those things together. It depends on how we react.
I would say the manifestation of Hyrrockin happens when we as men don't fucking know who we are. And that's reflected all across the board. Take it back to what you said about the war with the Romans and the Germanic tribes and all that kind of shit. And see, I'm addressing this because this is what we're dealing with in context to the energy of the goddamn fucking reality field, man. And I can literally feel this because of my disposition. I can feel that. I can feel that fear. I can feel that anxiety. And it manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. And I'm continually having to draw the circle and be in alignment in the midst of this, because it's a lot of bleed through that wants to come in. And that's why doing ritual and practice and healing work is so fucking important. I see a lot of people want to skip that. They don't want to go into the pain of the fucking abyss and face that fucking shit. And see, if you resist anything, it's going to throw you into a fucking feedback loop. They turn into fucking psychos. Listen, man, that's the wicked motherfucking witch that you got to be aware of, men. All men out there listening, you got to be aware of that, because that woman is not interested in giving you her power at all. That thought process is not even going on with her. Okay.
Well, let me give you
again. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
Consciously, they want that.
On the wicked witch, what the feminine wants to do more than anything else is to empower the male. They want to see in the male Shiva, the ultimate man that they can respect and adore, and then they are going to reflect back to that masculine what it is capable of. The feminine that is out of alignment cannot stand in front of Shiva. That's when women get really fucking enjoy your life and cut your dick off. And once they get to a certain point, just like everything else, there's no coming back from it. To defeat the wicked witch is for the men to become true men, to be the man that she wants to love. Rise to the occasion. Let me give you another example from the Vedic tradition. You're asking about the Voluspa. It's the same idea. In the Germanic tradition, tribes gave the women their staff. We see the staff carrier woman as all-powerful. In the Vedic tradition, they have a slightly different take, where Shiva and Parvati, his wife, are talking. And it is Shiva talking to Parvati, and he's telling her who she is.
Yeah.
She asks, well, how did the universe come into existence? Well, how did this? And he says, you, my goddess, you are the mother, you created this, you did that. And it's said that she's sitting at his feet, giving him the status. So she's treating him like the guru, but he is worshiping her as the mother of the universe, and he is informing her of who she is. So this is what the feminine is looking for also, being that loving force that surrounds the male and empowers it. Because they're the feminine, now what men do is men just become flaccid, like the guy. They sit in their underwear and they play video games. Women don't become flaccid, they become more of who they are. So instead of being that loving force that surrounds the male and empowers it, they become a boa constrictor, and they just suck the fucking life out. They nag you because there's nothing there for them to respond to.
Right, and another very important thing I want to touch upon is the fucking fact that men, they gotta carve out their fucking path. They gotta stop chasing fucking women and thinking that being with a woman is going to give them any sorts of status without actually having a goddamn fucking vision for their fucking life.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and this is why people get into relationships for all the fucking wrong reasons, and they don't know why it's not working the fuck out. You're fucking 45 years old, still playing fucking video games into Skyrim and all this kind of stuff, taken from the Nordic tradition. What was the power of the character in Skyrim? The Galder, the ancient Nord arts, when he spoke forth, it destroyed the darkness. And I don't play fucking Skyrim. I'm not a gamer. Just anybody out there, I'm not into that shit. You haven't even started playing the real motherfucking game.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on? I stopped playing video games when I was like 13, man. So there's a switch in consciousness that's taking place, an opportunity, and more people are starting to wake up and realize this kind of stuff. In context to Ragnarok, fuck, man, I went into this not too long ago in a way where it's okay, I'm stumbling over my fucking words. I went into this recently and I said, I'm going to choose to go there, making fucking ritual out of it. That's where a lot of these questions that I've asked you tonight are coming from in context.